All right. Hello, how are you? My name is Ollie Sanitas. I'm one of the co-founders of the Oak Journal Method, and I'm here with Lauren Hebert and William Fischer, and we're here to talk about the Oak Journal. Both of you started using the Oak Journal, I don't know, a couple months ago, two? I've lost track of time in the world, so 3 months ago, maybe?
I think that's a normal response to everything that's going on. Gosh, I want to say starting in January.
I think it was January.
Yeah, so maybe 3 months
Mhm.
or so, a little more than that.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So 3 months. Great. And of course, I didn't ask you about yourself. So why don't you tell me about yourselves first before we talk about using the journal?
Yeah, sure. So we run two companies together, a consulting company in the complex systems and human-centered design space and a tech startup. And my background is primarily in human-centered design, and William is the nerd. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so for our tech startup, I'm the lead developer. We're still kind of in prototype phase, so I'm also the only developer. And for our consulting company, I'm also a developer. So I do contract work there. And my background is in software development, obviously, full stack. And I also am a mathematician and a Navy veteran. I've worked in nuclear power and digital network intelligence in the Navy.
And you have amazing hair. Just out there.
I was going to say the same.
Awesome.
So you can feel free to mention the names of your startups too. This is fine. But so you started the journal 3 months ago, and one of the things that I'm interested in is you're using it as a couple. So how is that going?
Well, I have to be honest, at first I was really skeptical of that process. When I remember listening to Keith talk about the journal in person and talk about having an accountability partner. And I looked at William and I was like, no, no way. But actually it's been really beneficial to be able to focus our conversations around some key, points that we want to address each day. So we can see the gap between, what he needs to accomplish and what I need to accomplish, or can see our focus diverging or converging any given day. So it's actually been really helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree. It sort of illuminates any gaps in our intentions and our priorities for the day. So where we each might wake up and I have one bundle of problems on my mind and she has a completely different bundle of problems. And if we don't stop and have that conversation, we just miss each other. And we come into the day with totally different expectations. And a lot of those expectations are just tacit, implicit. And this, it really just allows us to say what they are. So that we don't, clash later on when we each are counting on the other to do something or, follow through on some, some goal that we'd set.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also couples therapy in a way.
A little bit, actually, a little bit.
Well, we have to talk to each other.
I know, it's a thing. It's a thing. So do you actually, when you fill out the day page, do you actually look at your 3 most important things or your goal for the day together? Is that something that you practice?
Yeah, I think that piece has been particularly helpful. So when we actually, because some of the most important things are for our days are quite large, we sometimes will narrow it down to just the one most important thing, and we each really focus on that, but we have those others in mind as well. So yeah, it's really clarifying actually to talk about our visions and our important things. But I think the other thing that's been really helpful is just having space to kind of sketch that out and see the progress of that throughout the day? Like what specific little things can I do to make this vision, to realize this vision, or to, get to these important things. And then we have the opportunity to encourage each other, right? So if the important thing is we each need to take the time to meditate, I can say, you didn't do your meditation, but, so we can,
She does that more for me than I do for her. Once she writes it down, she's a bit better at sticking to it, whereas I go rogue pretty quick.
Interesting. That's does the act of writing down give it a sense of permanence to you, Lauren? William, you seem to be a wild card on that one.
It's a really interesting question. So I like my days to meander. So I'm actually not really good with routine, to be perfectly honest. But what writing it down allows me to do is see the sort of ideal path the day would take and know when I'm deviating from it, or when William is deviating from the path he's laid out. And then I can ask a really helpful question, which is this deviation useful? Is this deviation productive? Or is this deviation just a deviation?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Am I going down a rabbit hole right now that I'm not going to come back from? And so that is, I think, what writing it down really does, is it just helps me to see, like, what is the ideal path and where am I? Am I on it or not?
Kind of creates that guidepost.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
And I think I also, I don't quite have the same like meandering through the day thing. I think I have a tendency to both simultaneously crave and buck structure. So like I want things to be really like, bam, bam, bam. But then when I actually get to it, like I don't think I've ever followed like a block schedule for more than 2 days at a time. Like I'll write it down, but I don't do it. But I think what I've kind of started doing for like the most important things is, instead of like thinking about it in terms of things to do, I think about it in terms of the most important problem I'm trying to solve. And that gives me creative liberty to just move through that space however I need to in the moment. So that's kind of how I think about that piece of it.
I like that. That's actually pretty cool. I might have to borrow that strategy. So that's really cool.
Just make sure you reference. Just give me credit when you.
Always. Every time I buck the strategy and I'm successful, I will say William. I'll tag you. All right.
I'm kidding, by the way.
He needs a lot of recognition. Great job, William.
We'll edit this part out.
And I'm not kidding. I will reference you in everything. So it's interesting because it is fun to kind of learn how different people use the same tool, and this is a bit of a departure than say how I use it, which is cool. And I'm glad it's flexible enough to meet different personality types. And so tell me about the Bhag and the SMART goals. Have you been able to leverage those at all? Because that all the stuff at the beginning of the book, and if so, can you? And also your personal why. Those are the sort of three big front end things. Have you been able to do that? And if you want to share them with us, great.
Well, it's an interesting question, because we spent a lot of time talking about this. So I think the one thing the beginning of the journal did for us is to open up discussion around why, our whys and goals. And what we realized is that we're much better with creating an intention and then living into that intention than we are with like discrete goals that are like time bound. And so it's almost it's like well, it's an infinite goal. To use Simon Sinek's language, stolen from James Carse, and borrowed from James Carse.
Wow.
No, I didn't mean it to sound.
She has opinions.
But actually, the original book is right here, so I guess what William and I realized is that we we do much better when we set an intention and then try to live into that intention rather than setting a discrete goal with like an end date and, that's measurable. And so it occurred to us that like, we're maybe just not goal-oriented people in that way. So we measure things based on, at the end of the day, like, did we live into the wholesome space that we want to create for ourselves? Or did we build, whatever product we're trying to build that day? Or, I don't know, there could be, even just cooking dinner. Did we do it in a way that is wholesome and like, with an eye for quality? And, did we, were we grateful while we did it? So it's more like things like that. I don't know if that's a good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm a big fan of infinite goals, and now and is always the case with Lauren. I have a new book to read. So thank you. And what is it in the context of the journal? And the journal it has some time components, and
Mm-hmm.
given that you I want to say resist that structure a little bit. What about the weekly retrospectives? Are those helpful then? Or for you?
Super helpful.
Yeah, I agree. That is
super
helpful.
Because it's the journal, it's amazing for habit tracking. And so if you want to live into an intention, you need to know, are the choices you make on a daily basis helping you to, to live into it, or are they moving you farther away from that intention? And so I think looking back on the week and asking yourself, did I do all those little daily things? Did I make decisions in the moment that helped me to live into this? Super helpful. Yeah.
Kind of along the same lines, we started doing this shortly after I read Atomic Habits by James Clear. And just like having that, like a bit of grounding in habit behavior science, I think really helped. It also illuminated one of the challenges with habit tracking, and that's that like habits are so contextual that if your context changes, like all the habits change. You have to restart the counter back at 0 if you're 20 days into something and you move, which we did. So like we moved and then we got put on lockdown and like all of these things happened. So there's this constant shift in context. And when that happens, you have to change the habits you're trying to build and how you keep track of them really fluidly and dynamically. So it's I think important to realize that sort of thing has to like flux and pivot as the circumstances of your life changes.
And then in the journal context, it really does allow you to capture that change. So it's not like the structure is definitely flexible enough, and looking back at it, I mean, I absolutely would not take the time. I'm very much a person who lives in the future. So I would not take the time to look back over the week and say, what things made me successful? And, where could I enhance my habits, or enhance my environment to produce better results? If, without, a big problem popping up. Right. So I'm definitely a person who's like, on to the next thing. And so that retrospective perspective is really helpful.
This is fascinating to me, just because it's so much different than anyone else I've talked to. Sorry. And the idea, so the habits are, the goals can sometimes pivot, but also you're kind of using the goals, and even the daily goals and the even the SMART goals, quote unquote, and we'll call them loose SMART goals for you, because I'm getting that. But they serve as sort of a relational, not a relationship, sort of a guidepost, right? So it's how far away am I deviating, and is that too much? And if I've deviated, have things changed? Is that kind of how you're using it?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay, cool. And just so I don't want to talk too much longer, but I want to give you a couple chances to talk about some of your other favorite tools, because a lot of things that appeal to me are the positive psychology exercises. Do you have a favorite? Have you been using those at all?
Yeah. I mean, the easy one to talk about is gratitude, because it's there, you know, in the daily routine. And it's really funny. I don't want to admit this publicly, but publish it if you must. But at first I was like, okay, I've kept gratitude journals in the past, and, you know, like, I'm just not going to do that, basically. Like, I appreciate it, but, you know, I'm not going to do it. And then for whatever reason, I just did. And it was tremendous.
I made her. That's the reason.
There you go. Oh my gosh, you need recognition.
Yes.
William made me do it. And
Thank you, William.
Encouraged me to do it. William supported me, supported my efforts. So I ended up, you know, just doing it. And it was remarkably helpful. Like, I actually, so over the last 30 days, which have been really hectic and crazy, the piece of this that has persisted the most, as I've had to step away from actively using the journal every day, is the gratitude piece. It's just there now. And it's really interesting, because I've used gratitude journals many times, and I think it might be actually waking up and thinking about gratitude and doing it again in the evening that really made the difference. It's not, you know, it's just there, you know, throughout the whole day because of that routine. But it's persisted, really. I mean, even when I've had to set the journal aside, and I was pretty blown away by that.
Wow.
I think there's a piece of the gratitude journaling that I think is really important to recognize. And that's that, like, it's completely possible to write down 3 things you're grateful for without feeling grateful for them. And I think it's really important to make sure you don't make that just like a routine process of just, you know, going through the steps, and you actually stop and take a minute to really feel that appreciation, to really tap into that emotional connection with the words on this page. Because otherwise it doesn't really do anything at all.
Yeah. I wonder, it makes me think of like metta meditation, you know, like a compassion meditation, where you gradually move from compassion for people you feel, you know, warmth and gratitude toward and love toward, to people who are outside of that space for you, whether it's just someone you don't know at all, or someone you've had a conflict with. And so it would be really easy to say, you know, about somebody who has, you know, who you've had friction with, you know, I really hope they have a wonderful day today, without meaning it at all, but just going through so very, really similar. But I think, I don't know what it was about this process in particular that made gratitude stick. I'm still trying to kind of figure that out, but maybe it's connecting that with your vision a little bit. You know, maybe it's the fact that you're, at the same time, you're thinking both about how you want to show up in the world that day, and gratitude, and that maybe opens you up to really thinking about what you're grateful for in a way that you wouldn't if it was just solely a gratitude journal, where you're like, grateful for breakfast this morning, you know, grateful for, so it brings it into a larger space of kind of who you want to be and how you want to show up. So I don't know, when I have a crisp answer for you there, I'll give it, but that's the best I can do on the fly.
That was a great answer. That was a good. It also, we're as we progress through the journal, and we're going to try to make more iterations, we're trying to think of more exercises to do. And one of them will be something surrounded about forgiving someone who you don't think deserves it, which that sort of inspired me to now, hey, I need to get that one on paper and work on that. So
yeah,
that wasn't a question. So that was a terrible thing. And as an interviewer, I apologize.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, it's such an important thing, because, you know, being angry or frustrated, it's only hurting us. It's not hurting the other person. So it really is a process that we have to go through, that can be really, I guess, relieving and healthy. And it's not for them, it's for us. So I think that would be a really cool component of the journal.
Well, when we have it there, I'll let you know. I'll bring it out. So you two are both amazing. I appreciate all the time you've given to. I know you are super busy, more busy than I think anyone I know at this point. So thanks for taking the time. But before we sign off, is there anything else you want to share?
I think I'd like to just say something about the 10-10-10 habit process. So I actually think that's probably been one of the most helpful parts. And I'll start by admitting, like, I just don't do all of them every day. But I do keep coming back to each of them, and sometimes I do all of them. But I think that they each have like their own really important piece to preparing you to kind of show up as your best self for the day. And I think that they are all really important, and that like little bundle of kind of interrelated habits is really pretty essential. And what I found is that, like, on days that I don't meditate, I'm less calm and I'm more reactive. Like, naturally, that's a very clear and well-known side effect of meditation. But there's also like clear thinking, and I mean the benefits just go on and on. But those are like the two most pronounced ones, like any given day, if you just skip meditating. On days that I don't journal, I find that I'm more mentally scattered. There's just a little more dissonance, and I find it harder to just even make the decision about what to do now. And writing all these things down and just getting your thoughts onto paper puts you in a space where you're not like ruminating and spinning and just unable to move forward. And then reading, I think, is one of the most. That's one of the ones where there's a really hidden benefit. And so I think that you guys have emphasized like sort of creativity, like kind of mental energy in that respect. But I think that for me, like, it's actually more about motivation. There's something about exposing yourself to new ideas that creates a kind of energy that's really hard to replicate. So it's about like actually feeling compelled to act, and just getting these insights into how the world works. Like, it lights a fire. And I have a hard time kind of duplicating that in other ways. So I think that those three things are actually all really important. And I think it's helpful to have this simple framework that makes it easy to keep coming back to them, even if you can't like manage to do all of them every day.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is one of the most profound explanations of the benefits of 10-10-10 that I've ever heard. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also
recognition.
Yeah. Mentioned all over. I also am glad you pointed out that you can't always, sometimes you're not able to do everything. We don't want this tool to be felt as a shaming tool. So if you can forget something one day, it's actually okay. But I love that you kind of have some understanding, though, of when you do miss part of the tool, it has an effect, which that is not something that I've heard anyone else express. So yeah, that's impressive.
And just thinking about what William said and a little bit about the retrospective, at the end of the week, and thinking about, whether or not you're sort of on your path or off it a bit. The other thing that I guess combined that happens kind of as an emergent property is it creates a lot of curiosity about where you're headed and why you're headed in that direction, and what you can, it opens up all kinds of how might we spaces, and so you can kind of curiously explore into all of those spaces, and maybe that's really the way or earlier you said it's sort of like couples therapy, and maybe that's really why it acts as a therapist, because we get curious about each other and each other's mental models of a given day or of, you know, a given chunk of our lives, or each other's intentions, and we can start to ask really helpful questions to open up spaces that just weren't possible before. So cheers to you guys for making that happen.
Oh, well, thank you. And seriously, cheers to you. I know you've got so much going on. So this has been super fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. And we will be posting this in some form or another. And I can't wait to see your reactions to it.
All right.
Thanks, Ollie.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.